Good afternoon. My name is Campbell McCrary. I'm a Vice President Capital Markets at Amvest Capital in New York. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Core Mining Inc. Core trades on the TSX Venture as KORE and on the OTCQB as KOREF. We hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will also be available in replay mode. Feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of the GoToWebinar control panel, or simply email them in. We'll try and ask the questions in real time. Amvest Capital is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. As this disclaimer says very clearly, this call is for informational purposes only, and we'll leave it at that. Presenting today is Scott Trebilcock, President and CEO of the company. Scott, making you presenter, if you could share your webcam. 25 years of experience as a process engineer, management consultant, and mining executive. Most recently, he was a chief development officer for famous Nevsun Resources, responsible for strategy, corporate development, IR, and exploration. Nevsun sold to Jin Mining for $1.9 billion after a year-long contested defense process led by Scott himself. Scott also drove M&A at Nevsun, including the 2016 acquisition of Reservoir Minerals. Following the presentations, members of Amvest Capital will ask questions of management. We also look forward to any attendee questions that have been sent in. You can either email them or find your way to the question function on the GoToWebinar box there. Thank you. And Scott, take us away. Good morning, early morning for you.
Okay, thank you, Campbell. Thanks for having me. Can you see my website screen? All right. Okay, well, thank you everybody out there for participating and taking some time to hear a bit more about Core Mining. I'm going to go through what I'm hoping will be something around a 20-minute presentation. I'm going to focus largely on an update on the recent news of the company, but I'll try and get a bit of background as well for those that are new to the story. And then most importantly, let's get to a Q&A session at the end and have some good dialogue about the company, because that's ultimately what it's all about. So Core Mining is a Canadian listed. We're also listed on the OTCQB gold company. We're currently both a developer and an explorer. We've got a portfolio of gold assets in nice, safe, and stable jurisdictions. I think the company's been set up really well to perform in this burgeoning gold market that we see ahead of us. I am going to be making some forward-looking statements, so I do encourage anybody who has interest in the company or who follows the company, take the time to review our public disclosures on SEDAR, on our website, go through our MD&A, and make sure you read all about the company before making investments so you fully understand the risks. So for those that are new to the story, why don't I spend a little bit of time about how I think about an investment in Core. I am a significant shareholder myself. I have put a significant amount of capital into the company, at least in my personal net worth world. And this is what I like about the company. I like that Core has a portfolio of projects. So we're not a one-trick pony. We do have 3 assets with gold ounces already proven and in the ground. So we have ounces in the ground. We've also got projects that we own 100% and that are of district scale. That means these are significant, fully put together projects. You know, there's not partners and other owners, that are really, really clean to generate value for shareholders, both from Core's work and from potential M&A. So I think that's a key attribute about the company. The company also has a preliminary economic assessment, a PEA. So we've gone through the engineering process to generate the potential economics for one of those resources in the ground. It shows that a deposit potentially has a very significant valuation. You can see the numbers, about $343 million US dollar net present value, and that's at only $1,450 gold. So you can see there is real potential value from Core can generate by going through the process of developing that asset. And we'll talk about that a bit. That's in Imperial. We are, however, also exploring across our portfolio, and that has attracted a significant investment from Mr. Eric Sprott, who likes both the asset ounces in the ground, the portfolio nature, and the aggressive exploration plans. and we'll talk about those plans in a little bit. Most importantly, though, the company is undervalued to peers. If you take our net asset value of that PEA, if you think about the potential value generation from the exploration side, and you compare that to companies TSX listed with similar characteristics, US gold developers, advanced explorers, the company looks very cheap on a valuation perspective, either ounces in the ground or net asset value. So obviously that's important for an investor. We also have a significant insider ownership. Insiders still own a significant chunk of the shares, along with our strategic investor, Eric Sprott and Macquarie Bank. And we've created a very well managed and tight capital structure. So we haven't gone out and issued a big public raise with 4-month hold stock and warrants coming due that are all going to put pressure on the stock. While we are currently bringing in some warrants that were from the IPO of the company 18 months ago, we've not done any fundraisings with warrants attached outside of Eric Sprott that are going to come pouring back into the market and put pressure on the stock. So I think we've kept the cap structure of the company really clean. So hopefully we can see some good runs in the share price. And then overall, and I think most importantly, we've got capital in the bank to do work on the ground on our assets and deliver value catalysts. So I'll return to this at the end and show you some of the details around that. Now, for those that are more familiar with the name, I'm going to dive into some of the updates on some of our work we've done lately on our key assets. So I'm going to start in British Columbia, Canada. In British Columbia, we have a project called the FG Gold Project where we're currently drilling. You can see that on the bottom right of the map on this slide. And then up at the top, we've got a gold discovery that's had a couple rounds of drilling in it that's looking really exciting. It's right next to the large, almost 10 million ounce deposit of Spanish Mountain called Gold Creek. And just a couple weeks ago, we announced a significant land grab where Core went out and through both striking deals with other claim holders and staking new ground. We've gone out and positioned ourselves in the Caribou Gold District with what we believe is a significant district scale exploration opportunity. On that opportunity, we have Gold Creek and FG. We've also got what looks like 5 other gold showings that are potential projects that Core will advance from the exploration perspective. We've got almost 1,000 kilometers of claims and the largest block on the Eureka Thrust, which controls gold mineralization in this district. So we've gone out and staked, the significant portion of a 110 kilometer trend. We've already got a gold discovery on it. We're drilling at FG, and we think this creates a really exciting asset that could potentially attract the interest of mid-tier and major companies. And again, an exit for Core shareholders could be moving this project on to another group down the track. If you look up to the north of this trend, and if you look at our news release, I didn't put the map in here, a Cisco Gold Royalties and their Barkerville project, or what they now call their Caribou Gold Project, is the entire north of this trend, and they also have about 1,000 square kilometers. So we're sitting there side by side with a Cisco. We control the south and they control the north of the camp. The Caribou Gold District is a prolific mineral belt. It is basically what built British Columbia infrastructure in the 1870s, what's called the Caribou Gold Rush. And it is a very prolific gold jurisdiction that hasn't seen a lot of exploration lately. People have been focused on the Golden Triangle, which is up north. This is road accessible, low elevation, relatively easy by BC standards exploration. And of course, super excited to be the big dog in the district. Zooming into the FG Gold Project, where if you look through our news flow, you've seen 3 news releases about a drill program we initiated we started drilling probably in February of this year. The first 4 holes of the program were very successful. And what we're trying to do with that drilling is we're trying to upgrade a historic resource that's about 1 million ounces of MI&I that we have on the project. You can see that it's that long, thin red mark on the map. That's the main zone where we're currently drilling. And we believe through using scientific work, so we're doing a form of drilling that'll increase our core recovery. We're doing a lot of what's called metallic screens, which were sort of an enhanced assay method to measure the gold in the deposit. We believe we could upgrade the grade of that resource. We're also stepping out and making new discoveries in and around that resource to grow it. We've discovered something called the lower zone, I'll show you in a second, and we're stepping out below the known mineralization. If we're successful with that drilling, which we believe we are so far, we open up the entire 20-kilometer horseshoe-shaped trend that you see in the orange on this map. We've got a 5,000-meter drilling program ongoing as we speak that'll keep a drill turning through October to continue to show results and prove that we have a great deposit here and the potential to open up exploration on the rest of that 20-kilometer trend. In addition to that, despite all of the mineralization so far to date is a very shallow deposit, we also have the potential to go deep. The rock that hosts this gold plunges to depth. It's wide open for new discovery and extends all the way underneath over to the other side of that horseshoe shape, if you look at it in section like on this map. And if you look at that little gray chip, that is all that's been explored to date of this deposit. Previous operators only drilled that little gray area because they were drilling across bedding and stepping up a hill, and they've left that whole rock route open at depth. So I think we have a real exciting opportunity here to interpret an old deposit, turn it into a new project that's going to attract a lot of attention in this gold environment. The first 4 holes that we put out in a news release over the last couple months has shown great results. We've seen some incredible high-grade intercepts, 32 meters of 3 grams, 11 meters of 10 grams. Those are right at surface in the known resource. We've also managed to drill some of the highest grade intercepts on the 2 sections that we've drilled to show that our assaying method and our core recovery is showing a potential to upgrade the resource. And most importantly, we've discovered what we call the lower zone, which is new mineralization, both down plunge and below the previously known mineralization. So we see an opportunity to also grow this resource and create a real exciting gold project in the Caribou. So that's FG Gold. So far drilling is hitting all its objectives. We've got 5,000 meters funded by Eric Sprott underway with the drills turning. I think we already have 3 or 4 holes out of the ground, off being cut, logged and sent off to the labs for assaying. And I expect to see a news release a month over the next 3 or 4 months on these great results we're getting from the FG Gold project. Okay, so I'm going to step out of BC now in our exciting district play up there and go to a second district scale play in core, and this is called the Imperial Project. Imperial Project is the project I mentioned earlier that was subject to the preliminary economic assessment that came out in, I believe, February of this year. That showed a 343 million net asset value, about a 44% IRR on the invested capital of 143 million. The assessment also showed we produce about 1.2 million ounces of gold, or about 146,000 ounces per year. This is a really nice project, stands up really well to other gold projects in the western deserts of the United States. If you look at it on a production basis, it's very similar or better than Gold Standard, Integra, Liberty, for example. Those are all much larger companies than Core. Our all-in sustaining cost in this project is $851 compared to what are we at, 1,900 plus gold price today, or certainly a long-term gold price of much higher than that. So we got really nice margins on the assets. I think this project stands tall, and that's important because as this gold bull market matures and the gold price stays high, the big gold companies, the mid-tiers, are seeing their valuations increase, and those companies are going to start to need growth. Investors are going to say, okay, now you look fully valued. How are you going to deliver more value to me? And those companies are going to need growth, and they're going to look to this menu of projects for how they can grow in the United States. And I think Core is going to be right smack dab in the middle of that exciting time. Project also is a very low capital intensity. That's important as Core goes forward because the project is very achievable for a company like Core to take all the way through to production, if it comes to it. So we'll talk about what the next steps are for Core in a few slides. In and around Imperial, again, I keep using this word district scale. And what we mean by that is, very important in mining, particularly if you're a mid-tier company, you don't want to have a postage stamp around your project because it doesn't allow you to put a mine in production and then step out and grow that mine over time. And let's take, for example, the Mesquite mine, which is located about 9 miles to the northeast of our Imperial project. And you can see it's the blue block right near the pink on the left side of the map. Mesquite was put into production by Gold Fields in 1985. That project is still running today. It was originally built on a multi-million ounce resource, very similar size to what we see at Imperial, our project today. And through the drill bit and having ground around their project, they've managed to make new discoveries, continue to expand that operation. It's now produced, I believe, almost 6 million ounces of gold, and they've still got a couple years of mining left. So that just shows you what you can do when you've got ground around your projects and you use exploration, because the old adage, the best place to find a mine next to a mine, stands very tall and true. And Core is putting together multiple district scale opportunities inside the company. So to that, we've got 21,000 acres of exploration ground tying up what's called the Mesquite Imperial Picacho Gold Trend. That trend already hosts 3 deposits, Picacho, Mesquite, and Imperial. We're smack dab in the middle of Imperial. So as Core advances Imperial through permitting and into production, we're going to continuously explore for new discoveries on that amazing exploration ground. To that end, we did geophysics stepping out towards Mesquite, as one naturally would. It's the largest deposit in the group. And we've discovered what we believe is the structural trend. So this is the faulting that controls gold mineralization in this area. Now it's undercover, so we're not sure if it's mineralized, but we're currently permitting drilling to go out and test some of those targets, as well as doing follow-up geophysics and soils. So expect to see a couple news releases coming out about Core. First one will be updated and more information on targeting of the drilling. And the next will be hopefully permitting and starting drilling in the late fall to start testing some of these targets and see if we can make some new discoveries from Imperial up towards Mesquite. So this is very exciting for Core to get out there and test this great gold belt for more mineralization. In parallel to that, Core is looking to move the Imperial project into the permitting process. For those that follow the company, on the back of the PEA, we said we were going to put together the permitting documents called the Plan of Operations. That document is coming together, and we're currently working with local stakeholders to communicate with the local politicians, the local communities, other local stakeholders, to make sure that we're engaging across the board before we move the project officially into permitting. I think when you think about permitting of this project, most people sort of say, oh, first off, can you mine in California? Well, California is the golden state. It has a long history of mining. There are literally hundreds of mining operations in California today. If you include the aggregate mining, if you include industrial minerals, Rio Tinto has a large operation. But if you look specifically at gold, California has permitted 3 new gold projects in the last several years. Castle Mountain, owned by Equinox up in the north, up in San Bernardino. We've got Sutter Gold, and we've also got Soledad Mountain, which was permitted up in Kern County. So you can tell you talk a lot about the county in California because the county applies California laws, and they're very strict reclamation environmental laws to federal land. And our Imperial project is on federal land. So Core is out engaging with our stakeholders to make sure we demonstrate the economic value we can bring to both California and this Imperial County. Imperial County itself, which will be our main regulator, is unfortunately suffering quite heavily from COVID. There's a lot of impact. They've already got a fairly high unemployment rate. This is a largely agricultural county that is very blue collar, but also very familiar with mining and with a long history. They have a US gypsum mine in the county. They have the Mesquite mine we talked about in the county. But unfortunately, one of the things the county is concerned about is the closure of the Mesquite mine in the next 2 or 3 years. Will start creating pressure on the employment situation in the county, and also take money out of the coffers for all the service providers and taxes. So I think putting our project forward as a responsible environmental project, fully compliant with backfilling, to backfill the jobs that will eventually be lost at Mesquite, is a very powerful story for helping us get permitted in political support in Imperial County. So we'd expect to see great support in the county for this project, and we look forward to bringing the project into the permitting process with submission of our plan of operations later in the year. Let me just loop back around briefly, talk about those the value proposition for core shares, advanced projects, the PEA, lots of exploration opportunities, undervaluation. Let me just step through a few other aspects before we go into a Q&A period. So let's talk a little bit about the undervaluation. So what do I mean by undervalued? So here's one example. So if you look at Core compared to a number of its US development peers, so you've got Midas in Idaho, you've got Corvus in Nevada, you've got Integra in Idaho, you got Gold Standards and Liberty in Nevada, all putting forward projects, which we looked at their production profiles earlier, you know, all looking to go through the permitting process, to put projects forward to stakeholders and to move them through production. If you put Core in that group, Core is the smallest market cap of all those companies. We trade on the low side of net asset valuation. We're trading at about a 0.3 times PNAV compared to a 0.6 average for the group. And that is zero value for our other projects and zero value for exploration upside, of which I would argue Core has some of the best exploration opportunities and upside compared to the PEA of the project than these other companies. And you can see, I think the perception is Liberty is very much an aggressive explorer. They also have a portfolio, and look at the value they've attained. So I think that just shows the aspirations we have for Core value to get it more on the scale of Liberty than where we are today. So we believe lots of upside to the company from getting out there, doing work on our assets and demonstrating that value in the ground. If you also look at the ounces in the ground in the company, we've got 2.5 million M&I, 2.4 million inferred across our 3 projects. You know, this is what attracted Eric Sprott. Eric Sprott is now a 26% holder of Core because he likes to see drilling, he likes to see growing resources and ounces in the ground, and he likes to see drill results because that generates value in the right gold market. And certainly, I think we're in the right gold market for that type of strategy today. So Eric has invested 3 times in the company. He's now a 26% shareholder of Core. He's beside Macquarie Bank, our other strategic investor who owns 4% of the company. And Macquarie did due diligence and has invested very much in the development story, whereas Eric is very much invested in the exploration story. Management still remains a very significant part of the share register at 38%. We are very much aligned with all of our public market shareholders. We've seen the company start to attract some interest from the institutional side with analyst coverage getting picked up by Nick at Cormar, Chris at PI. We got Ryan covering us on their watch list at Echelon and Laurentian, and Don looking at the company over at Paradigm on their Takeover 20 list. I mentioned also a very tight control of the cap structure. You know, we've currently got 117 million shares out. We're currently closing out a few of the warrants that were part of the IPO. We announced a few weeks back that we were calling those warrants early. There's only, last time I checked the CFO, a few 100,000 of those warrants left to go. So I don't think there's an overhang on the company from the selling of any of that stock right now. And as I said earlier, we've not done any widely distributed raises and fundraisings to put stock in hands of people that are going to sell it when the hold comes off. It's like we're in a really good position to generate value at the gold price and with news flow from Core. So last thing from me, you know, Core has set up with a work program that's generated what we believe will be a lot of catalysts over the balance of 2020. With Eric's most recent investment, we're fully funded to do all of this work. Starting at Imperial, we're working on the plan of operations, which will kick off the permitting process. We're currently permitting a drill program to go hit those exploration targets hard in and around Imperial. We're in the field right now doing follow-up targeting work to make sure we hit the highest priority targets first. We didn't talk about Long Valley here, but we at Long Valley, we're currently permitting a program to go drill some of the targets we generated early this year, and we're considering even doing a PEA on the known resource of that deposit just because it looks so exciting. We talked a lot about FG Gold and our BC or Caribou Gold region. We're currently got a drill turning there with news flow coming, you know, right through the fall. And we'll probably move that drill and the crew over to do a few holes at Gold Creek to keep those licenses in good standing and test a few nice targets there. So overall, the mantra at Core is always a drill turning, We're always exploring. We've got lots of opportunities. If we take a delay here or there, we can always go work the other projects. And I think that allows us to be able to deliver a lot of news flow to our shareholders, keep excitement up in the equity, and do the things we need to do to try and get the value of this company up closer to our peers and hopefully better, because I think we've got an above average company here, not just an average company. So with that, let me stop and let's hear from shareholders and go through a Q&A.
Okay. Let's just kind of move it. Well, I'm going to just focus, circling on Imperial briefly. You've defined 4 targets that you want to explore on adjacent to the current Imperial resource. Why are these so interesting? Which ones are priorities? Can we expect more news on them?
Yeah, great question. So, we're excited. So this is I think we're talking about Imperial here. Imperial is the asset where we control about a 28-kilometer gold trend. At one end of that gold trend, you've got a past 6 million ounce producer with a couple million ounces still in the ground. At the other end of that trend, you've got what's called the Picacho mine, which was mined by a great company, Glamis, in the 1990s. Glamis also did the original work at our Imperial Project back in the 90s, but low gold price and changes in California law, thwarted them from developing the project at the time. And they found all 3 of those projects through outcrop. So they were, deposits that had been mined by placer miners when the railroad came through in the 1800s and on and off through the years. And when the big miners came in the 80s, they chased these deposits to depth, they drilled them out, but they didn't do a lot of generative exploration work. They didn't have to. They already had found mines and were putting them into production. And when California implemented the backfill law and gold went to $400 an ounce, the gold miners left their jurisdiction and all these claims came open. And that's what allowed Core to jump in there and claim the whole district. So we're using geophysics to look under the sediment cover, so we don't have native rocks at the surface over the rest of the belt. So we're using geophysics, and what's exciting is we can see what looks like the structural trend connecting Mesquite to Imperial to Picacho along that trend. And that means we believe hopefully some of those other faults are mineralized, and we've got to get out there and drill them. So that's what we're excited about. We're excited about making new multi-million ounce discoveries in a belt that already has millions of ounces of gold.
Please ask Scott to elaborate on how metallic screening, on metallic screening and how it adds to fire assay values.
Yes, no, that's a great question. It's getting quite technical. It's kind of a mouthful to describe what we're trying to do at FG Gold. So now we're talking about our FG Gold drill program. If you recall, we're drilling out a known about 1 million ounces of gold that's in the ground. Those ounces were drilled on average to only 93 meters below surface. This gold is literally almost right at the surface. It was drilled by multiple operators, which was part of the problem with the past work. They used a lot of RC drilling. They were trying to define a bulk disseminated deposit, and they were doing it kind of on the cheap using RC and core. They're using some narrow diameter core. And what they found was that the FG Gold deposit has coarse grained gold in it. So while there's gold well disseminated in certain areas of the deposit and associated with the veins, that gold, you tend to get visible gold, so that means fairly large chunks, and you tend to get fairly granular gold. The problem is when you're RC drilling, you can lose little bits of those grains. If you don't have good core recovery, which means you're losing core in the core barrels, you tend to also lose gold because you're fracturing that core around some of that quartz, you're losing little bits of the gold. And then also fire assaying doesn't do a good job in general of assaying coarse gold because you get full gold chunks that aren't picked up by the fire assay. So what metallic screening does is you basically take a much larger sample, you grind up that sample, you screen it into coarse and fine fractions, you actually fire assay the fine fractions, right? And then you actually fire assay and do more testing on the screening of the coarse fraction, and that then allows you basically to test a larger sample across various fractions to better understand what that coarse gold is. And what we're seeing is anywhere from a 10 to 48% upgrade from the fire assays from capturing that coarse gold appropriately and scientifically in the lab. So that's sort of objective number one. We're also using what's called a triple barrel core system and oriented core. So we're getting very good core recovery. So we're getting all the rock out of the ground to really define what this deposit is all about. Core is also focused on trying to understand the structure that's controlling that mineralization, because while it was drilled as a bulk disseminated deposit, it's not. It's very much a structurally controlled vein deposit. And all of that reinterpretation is being done in our drilling. And if we're successful, we believe we can have a much better deposit, nice and shallow for open pit. And if we can show we can find what controls some of these high grade structures, chase it at depth, great, open up the rock mass to underground. Now suddenly you've got a huge opportunity on this claim block along that 20-kilometer trend at depth where you can create a major project here. So that's the excitement at FG.
Got it.
Thanks for the presentation, Scott. So you mentioned Imperial and COVID, and I saw a nice selfie you had on your LinkedIn when you went to site in BC. Just wanted to kind of touch on, given the travel restrictions, how are you finding the teams you have in this, in California, and your reliance on them at the moment, given you can't go down?
Correct. Yeah, no, COVID, obviously, the most important thing is that we keep all of our contractors and employees safe. And you're right. So currently we're not traveling on airplanes. We're not flying across the border. The good news is with respect to our U.S. projects, Mark Leduc, our Chief Operating Officer, is based in Denver. He did go down to Imperial County about a month ago, but he drove. That was important. We do have field team out in the field in Imperial County, but because they're out in a remote location, they can do their work in a socially distanced way, and making sure that when we do go into local communities that we practice the appropriate controls. I think we can do work at a remote project, in a COVID appropriate manner. And the engineering work in the background obviously is all done from people working at home and on Zoom. Now, where COVID does have an impact is in our dealing with the bureaucracy in California. So as you can imagine, government offices are not open and functioning as they normally do. And we're trying to engage with stakeholders to put forward what is a very significant thing, a potential mining project in the county. So, we're probably going to see some delays in submission of the plan of operations, simply because we need to get out and communicate with people before we submit that document. And we've had good record of Zoom meeting and meeting politicians online, but the bureaucracy is very important to us. So we're monitoring very carefully their ability to do work and support our permitting process. And so we're seeing a similar thing on our drill permitting up with the Forest Service in our Central California project, Long Valley, is that the Forest Service is not functioning to full capacity. So we'll probably see some delays in permitting the drilling there. In Canada, we were able to drill right through COVID using appropriate practices for core cutting and logging. It's a very remote operation anyways, and probably suits itself actually very well to social distancing.
Yeah, fair enough. And then on the new Caribou Gold District claims, what were the acquisition terms, or did you stake the concessions directly?
Yeah, it was a mix. So we think we did 5 land deals with current claim holders. There was different terms on every deal, not a lot of cash up front, but there's a few milestone payments. I think we spent about $250,000 between, the upfront payments to those land deals. And then we actually did do a significant amount of staking ourselves. So it was a combination, but I'd say that, overall we kept the royalties low. There is some minor work commitments and some future payments on some of those blocks.
Got it, thank you.
Scott, thank you. Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me? So, tremendous performance since the last time you did a webinar with us. I think at that time I asked you about valuation, and and we were kind of, I guess thinking it's run up a lot then. It's gone up even more than now, which is, you know, fantastic. Can you just talk a little bit about, you know, obviously as a shareholder yourself, and, you know, if say you missed this last run, you know, what is the market missing in terms of your valuation, and help us understand where it could go.
So I think the market is starting to wake up. You know, we've seen, you know, Core historically also was very illiquid given the large amount of insider and strategic investor ownership. You know, we've seen liquidity really pick up here. I mean, that's what excites me most over the last 3 months. We've rolled over a lot of stock in the, you know, $1.40 to $1.80 range, meaning there's a new generation of investors. You know, we've made money for some of the founding investors. Some of them have traded out. We've seen new investors come into the name. And, you know, we want to deliver the same kind of returns to those shareholders that we did for the founding shareholders. You know, as insiders, we're in for the long haul. Our only exit is, you know, takeover, M&A, or some other event down the track. But we believe we've got the opportunity to deliver the kinds of returns to the current generation of shareholders as we did the founding shareholders. And why that is just time. You know, Core is putting forward, as we continue to drill, as we continue to show the value of these 3 main projects we have inside the company. You know, we haven't talked much about Long Valley, but we've got this Caribou Gold project in BC. We've got the Imperial project in California, both district scale, both with potentially logical places they could go with potential buyers down the track. And the market's still getting to know Core, right? So it takes time for them to understand and see the value. You have to do work and show you can deserve that value. And we're now capitalized by Eric Sprott to do that. So I think it's a matter of time and liquidity. We currently, I think, as we were talking in the pre-call, Core has almost 0 institutional investment in the company. It's all high net worth, kind of sharp retail investors and smaller shareholders that, because the stock hasn't been liquid or large enough. I think now, you know, we're going to start in the fall going out and trying to attract institutional investment. I think that's a whole nother market of buyers that could potentially, you know, take us into that new world of valuation, and hopefully is the kind of valuations Liberty sees.
Yeah, you mentioned that $100 million club, I remember last time, and so you're here now, so it's definitely, I guess, opportune for the institutions. So, you know, Eric Sprott is in there, you've got some cash on hand. What is he seeing that we should be seeing, and what does it mean for the company in terms of, you know, the cashed up balance sheet? What, you know, what sort of work can we expect from Core?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, I think Eric sees ounces in the ground. Like you can see from his other investments. I mean, he's spread a wide net, right? So he's investing in lots of things. I'm not, you know, his investment, I think, is good validation that Core has what he likes, which is ounces in the ground and the ability to work those assets. All of Core's assets are shallow deposits. They're all road accessible. There's a bit of seasonality in BC around winter, but really we can drill the other projects year round. So this really gives us lots of opportunities to continuously do work, to continue to generate that visibility for the company. And for the first time with that 7.5 million we closed from Eric a couple of weeks ago, you know, we're fully funded to deliver this plan, which is pretty much the same plan I put forward to you, you know, the last time, you know, we presented. And it's really to go and drill across the portfolio to make sure we're always permitting drilling so we can get out there and be aggressive to try and make new discoveries. While in the background, you've kind of got this baseline activity of permitting and de-risking Imperial to start to bring all of those different valuation forms, you know, into the market cap and the share price of the company.
Excellent. Thank you. Artie?
Hi, everyone. So can you please summarize again the key contributors of having lower operating cost for the Imperial than the Mesquite mine?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the great thing about Imperial, and this is true with, you know, with our whole portfolio in many ways, is Imperial has access to the infrastructure that was created and exists around the Mesquite mine. So Mesquite taps into a power line that goes over our project. There are many of their employees literally drive right by our front gate on the way to work. So you've got a ready, well-trained workforce familiar with mining. The previous operator, Glamis, drilled a water well and monitoring wells on our project. So we believe we've got a good aquifer we can draw water from. So we've got all the attributes you need for mining. And then I think, importantly now, what's different is Core is compliant with very strict what's called backfilling and reclamation laws in California. That I think will put the project forward as a poster child for how to do it right in the mining sector. All these things come together to make the project low cost. So you can mine, we're mining, I think 0.6 thereabouts in the average life of mine, 0.6 grams per ton. Mesquite is making really good money right now, processing 0.3. So, we expect really good margins because of the, low cost infrastructure we got in the project.
Thank you. And for the FG Gold project, how many meters you recently, maybe in the last month, you achieved, and when we can expect the results for that?
Yep, good question. So we drilled 4 holes in what we called our winter program, and then we took a break during the winter melt. We started drilling again, probably 4 weeks ago now, maybe 5 weeks ago. Time's accelerated a little bit on me here. We've, I think, got 4 holes complete now on that new program. Those, are being cut and sent off to the lab. And we expect to have 12 to 15 additional holes for a total of 5,000 meters come out of that program from now until probably the end of October. So we're gonna have that drill continuously turning up there. Next results, it's gonna depend on the labs. The labs are busier every day as all this money that's been raised sort of flows into the working in the sector. So it's gonna depend on lab turnarounds, but I expect we'll have another news release coming out on this project in early September, and hopefully we got some great results to the market.
Thank you so much.
Would you do another economic study like a PFS and incorporate more of the Imperial ounces that you have, take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think we would right now in our current plan, because we're trying to be as cheap with capital and still deliver the milestones as we can. We didn't plan on doing a PFS in our sort of 3-year plan. We do only a feasibility study so that we can make the project bankable. That's how confident we are that it's a mine, and it's such a simple project. I mean, it's a gravel pit with a heap leach pad. Like, it's as simple as mining gets. So it's an easy thing to design and build, and then more than capable of doing that if we have to. But if I think about a PFS, what would drive a PSF would be making some discoveries. So we're permitting a lot of drill pads in our application right now, and when that comes through, we'll have the opportunity to drill step outs from the current mineralization, some on strike targets, some of those juicy targets up by Mesquite on the regional exploration package. And if we make a new discovery, that might be a great reason to do a PFS and show a bigger, better Imperial project.
Do you think, as of now, just generally, Imperial would be of interest to a bigger mining concern, or you probably still have a bit more work to do before it would be kind of marketable? And then while you're answering that, could you take us to the comparison slides again? Someone wanted to see that. So I guess in a roundabout way, sort of kind of tell us how competitive and or nearly to the stage of where you would be a competitive asset to be scooped up. So.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess you're kind of talking about the exit strategy for Imperial. Yeah. Should it unfold? Yeah, absolutely. So, Core, we're hiring a team right now on the ground. We've got staff on board. Mark's built up his team so that we can take this project, to be absolutely clear, right from where we are today through into production. Now, that said, we need to be practical in delivering value for our shareholders. So as we go through that pathway, and as we go into this gold bull market, I think what you're alluding to, Campbell, is there is the potential, for M&A activity around the company to move the asset into a mid-tier or large cap developer, an established gold company. And I think when I think about, the state of the project, we've got the PEA, we'll be in the permitting process in the coming months here. And I think it depends on how hot the gold market is. If you're in a really hot gold market and mid-tiers are trading at a 1.5 to 2 times NAV and cranking out cash flow, which I think in this gold cycle, what's exciting me is the fact that oil is still cheap. and there's going to be not as much pressure on labor costs as there was during the last cycle. It's really going to open up the gold company margins, and I think they're going to aggressively need growth. And I could see Core being right on this list of potential acquisitions. In fact, every one of these companies could go away through this cycle, because there's enough mid-tier gold companies out there that they're going to need projects. So
And
at what
they
point they're willing to buy Core is going to depend on how hungry they get in the cycle.
And they
I
might
could see buying it right now if
right. So they might not wait for more visibility on permitting. They might just take that on. So
yeah, to me, it's more about the price. Like if they allow us to get out there and hit some of these exploration targets, and we run a hole through a new discovery, that's just going to amp up what they're going to have to pay for it. So yeah.
Always get some of these questions, 5 years from now, best case and worst case scenario. What's your imagination on all that? I think in 5 years you want to be unemployed, so to speak, or non-employed at Core with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing especially in it with the type of assets that Core have, right? We need to set those projects up for exits and monetization in a gold cycle like I believe we're going into, which is a multi-year strong gold price, right? The big caps and the mid caps are going to get really, big in their britches, and that's a great time to sell them projects and make, generate value for our shareholders. So yeah, best case scenario, we monetize Core to a good developer, or sorry, Imperial to a good developer that takes that project forward, delivers value to Imperial County and all of our staff. That'd be great. Repeat at Long Valley, right? Checkbox number 2. Show that BC's got value. Either keep advancing that through multiple stages of exploration, or move that into someone interested in another great project. So I think we've got a potential for 3 separate M&A events to generate a ton of value.
Okay, and you mentioned it, worst case scenario, or just holding pattern.
Worst case, I don't know, the world economy rips, gold price goes back down to 14 or 1500 bucks, and capital dries up. And I think worst case is we, do less exploration because we have to fund the permitting of Imperial, and move that project step by step through permitting, and go out and finance construction of that project. I think in any foreseeable gold market, we will be able to get the capital and build Imperial and put it in production. So worst case, we're 146,000 ounce gold producer.
Got it. Thank you.
And just back on FJ, so you upsized your drill program recently. Can you talk about the reason behind that? And did that, was part of the catalyst, the acquisition of the new concessions in the area?
Yeah, we upsized the drill program really on the back of success. So, it's already a lowish grade deposit on a large area. So we do need to drill a lot of holes to understand the structure. And, the first 4 holes we drilled clearly isn't enough, but it did give us a good, strong sniff that we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, going out and just continue to drilling, I think was just a logical thing. And we just needed the catalyst for that was really just getting the equity from Eric Sprott. We converted some of that into a flow through so that we could, get the government of Canada to subsidize some of that drilling. And really it was success-based that we kept that drilling going. I think the move into the regional district was opportunistic. I think it's the right thing to make the kind of projects that bigger companies are interested in, which is a base development project with exploration around it. And when you've got the kind of exploration we've set up on our projects to date, I think we're creating really attractive opportunities.
Yeah, and when would you think you might be able to have a resource upgrade there from the historical resource?
Yeah, I don't. Right now, we don't want to, kind of turn around and start infilling. That means you really have to increase the scale of your team and spend a lot of money drilling holes that are, inside the current resource, and it gets kind of mechanical. We want to show that we can step out and make new discoveries significantly on strike. So we already have in the current program 2 500-meter step outs from the current deposit on the rock trend. and to continue to make discoveries at depth, because I think it's more important that we show scale, that when we go to infill, we're infilling 3 million ounces, not 1 million ounces. So I don't expect a resource upgrade from a new resource statement for quite some time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then kind of just touching on Gabe's point about valuation, a little while ago, you mentioned Cormark was the first to cover you from the research analyst side. Now you've had a few more firms cover you. Is there a kind of key theme that that they really like the story? Or, for the people that can't read their research reports, just wondering if you comment on what they're seeing as upside.
Yeah. I guess we could summarize it. Analysts like numbers, and I think having the PEA at Imperial is absolutely important for institutional analysts. They need to see that there is a fundamental value behind the equity value, and they look at the NAV multiples compared to peers, and they say, hey, this looks like a good thing for me to cover to get my clients into a name and making some money. So they like the kind of comparable strong US gold project with growth. And then I think they've all kind of taken a punt on the exploration. They don't put a lot of value in for the exploration. And that just means, as we show value for these other projects, they're just going to keep increasing and increasing their targets, which is ultimately what you want. We don't want them to sort of cap out at some valuation that's in the near term. I think we've got a long way to get them to keep moving up targets as we de-risk our projects. And I think they're also looking to be first out. So, no one was covering the company 5 months ago. Now there's several covering, and I think that's just showing, the street is getting excited about Core.
Yeah, thank you.
So $1,900 or $2,000 an ounce, what does Imperial look like? Have you done that math in terms of NPV?
It's funny. I think we were thinking 1,800 was a good upside to our PNAVs at. I don't have it in front of me, but it's way significantly higher. I think the number was 580 million at 1,800 US. So it's going to be even higher than that at 2,000. Like, it just shows the leverage that these projects have to the gold price. Yeah. It's about taking them and getting them into production, and we've got these projects have enough mine life. They'll see 1 or 2 cycles, and whether it's Core or someone else that builds them, they're going to generate a lot of money for somebody.
Yeah, the simple nature, and that's when I guess it starts to get discounted from NAV, but it's so simple here in a great jurisdiction. So billion, let's say 2,000, it could actually be a billion Canadian NAV, something like that. Close to that?
It's getting up in that range. Yep.
In that range. Okay. So assuming something like that happens, and you get some order of magnitude like that into the company as a sale of Imperial at some point in time, what do you do? Now you've got this portfolio. What do you do in that scenario for shareholders? You dividend it out, you invest in other projects, buy something.
Yeah, I mean, I think an ideal transaction would be, delivering that compensation, whether it's shares in another company or cash back significantly back to shareholders, and then using, the SpinCo concept to keep the other assets to their benefit, and then, quite frankly, do it again. Do it again at Long Valley, PEA, show it's a real project, de-risk it, move it forward, and do it again at FG. It's all about advancing projects till it's appealing to someone who wants to take them forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The newly added claims at the Caribou Gold District, how far those new claims are away from the already known structural trends in the area?
Yep. Yeah. So so the big structure in the area is called the Eureka Thrust, and it's about 110 kilometers that actually comes down from Cisco Gold Royalties, Barkerville, or Caribou Gold Project. That's really the whole north of the trend. As that structural trend comes down, it passes through Gold Creek, Spanish Mountain, a significant gold resource, and then heads down another 25 Ks or so to our FG Gold Project, where it does a little zigzag. It's been folded into the syncline that's really driven the FG Gold Project. So we've got about 1,000 square kilometers tied up in this district that's highly prospective for orogenic gold deposits like FG Gold is. And the good news about orogenic gold deposits is they can be big. They're some of the largest gold deposits in the world are orogenic, and having that kind of exploration scale inside the company is really exciting for shareholders.
Thank you.
Thanks, Artie. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please follow Core, LinkedIn. I think they're on Twitter. You can also just email Core. Scott and David Yan are quite easy to get a hold of. And please, when we queue for feedback, please provide it. It's not only helpful for us, but helpful for the company. Anything long or short is appreciated. And with that, Scott, why don't you give us a closing statement? Basically, why should we put an order in or call our broker right now?
Well,
now,
fully funded news flow. We got drill turning BC, want to have one turning in California to follow that later in the year, and that's just going to make more and more visibility to Core and our exciting assets. And hope to communicate with everybody and talk to you all. And thanks for taking some time to hear about Core Mining.
Thank you, everyone. It's going to be
Thank you.
Great rest of the summer and fall.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gabe, Stuart, Campbell.
Congratulations for all the great work you've been doing.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Cheers.